And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience, and I've continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FE Show, we're going to dive back into our Week 1 recaps. The games are said and done, and there's a lot to talk about. In this video in particular, I'm going to be covering the Browns versus the Ravens. If you want to find any of my other Week 1 recaps, you can click the link right up here, or there's also going to be a link in the description, just in case I forget to add that card right up on top of the screen. So also be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, power running back style like Derrick Henry up the middle, so that you never miss a video from me. And if you are excited for this game recap, be sure to drop a like down below like an open receiver downfield. Just hit that like button, Patrick Mahomes style, like right in stride with that wide receiver. You know what I'm talking about. Then you can also follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. All right, let's jump right into it. Like I said, this video is going to be Browns versus Ravens, and there really is only one way to start this, right? And it's just like we started off the Texans and the Chiefs, and that's with a highlight montage. Let's get right into it. So Browns at Ravens, this game being played in Baltimore. There was a pretty high over-under with Baltimore expected to win, and we got to start off the season right where we left off, 2019. Lamar Jackson finds his favorite target, Mark Andrews, for the 5-yard touchdown. With Hayden Hurst being shipped to the Falcons, it looks like Mark Andrews is in for an even bigger workload than he had last season. On the other end of the field, the Browns play action to Nick Chubb, but unfortunately Nick Chubb does not get the goal line work. Instead, play action pass to David Njoku. All right, next drive. Let's go. Play action. Gus Edwards. No, it's a deep bomb to Hollywood Brown. Marquise Brown, 47-yard gain. I said you should start Hollywood this week, and he came through for you. Later on in the second quarter, again, just a handoff to the rookie, J.K. Dobbins. He's in for the 3-yard touchdown, his first touchdown of his NFL career. And then we're going to go right back to Andrews, 9-yard touchdown here. He is so good. He's going to be drafted in the top 2, I'll still say top 3 tight ends next year, but we're just starting off hot this year with Mark Andrews. And just a little bit later in the third quarter, 19-yard touchdown, Lamar Jackson to Willie Snead. Have yourself a day, I would say Mark Andrews, but also Lamar Jackson. That's what I meant to say. All right, finally, start off the fourth quarter. J.K. Dobbins gets the goal line carry again. 2-yard touchdown run, his second of the day, and it was all Ravens early on. Again, the final score here, 38 for the Ravens, 6 for the Browns. The Browns got absolutely routed, and let's talk about this game just a little bit. You can see the box score here on the screen. Baker Mayfield, 21 completions on 39 pass attempts, 189 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Kareem Hunt, 3 carries, 72 yards, but he also picked up 4 receptions for 9 yards. Nothing great there. Jarvis Landry was, again, the best receiver on the field. He is the number 1 option for Cleveland, 5 receptions for 61 yards. Nick Chubb had 10 carries for 60 yards as well. And just a few notes here on the side. Odell Beckham Jr., 10 targets, 3 receptions for 22 yards. It was rough sledding if you started Beckham. However, let's go back to the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, an unbelievable lights-out performance yet again. It is so difficult to stop him. It doesn't matter if it is on the ground or through the air. Lamar Jackson can do it all. 20 completions on 25 attempts, 275 passing yards, 45 rushing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. Let's go over just a little bit lower than J.K. Dobbins, 7 carries, 22 yards, and the 2 goal line touchdowns. Mark Andrews, 5 receptions, 58 yards, and 2 of the 3 passing touchdowns that we just saw. Hollywood Brown came through for you in a big way. 5 catches for 101 yards. And it's also important to note that Mark Ingram only had 10 carries for 22 yards, and he was not getting the goal line work. That was going to J.K. Dobbins. Something very unexpected for Week 1. That was one of the big questions that we had shaking out over the course of this game, was who was going to get the goal line work, where were J.K. Dobbins' carries going to come from, and we saw where it was. J.K. Dobbins was getting the valuable touches, and that was really, really shocking. In fact, I was facing my opponent in Dynasty. He has J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram, and he started Mark Ingram. I'm very glad he did not play J.K. Dobbins, because I would likely be losing if that were the case. The big thing here, I think, and the biggest takeaway from watching this game is, the Browns, still have to figure this shit out. It was not pretty for Baker yet again, and of course, this Ravens defense is spectacular, so, that is an opening week 1 matchup, admittedly, but it was rough sledding for them pretty much all game. They couldn't get a whole lot going. One of the other things that I thought was really interesting, and this was the conversation that was taking place leading up to this game, especially with the extension of Kareem Hunt, the 2-year deal, is what was the splits, what were the splits going to look like between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt? Well, let's see. Kareem Hunt had more carries, and he had more receptions. He had 13 carries and 4 receptions to Nick Chubb's 10 carries and 1 reception. Ultimately, Kareem Hunt had, I believe, let's do some quick math here. Kareem Hunt had about he had about 10 more yards than Nick Chubb overall. But this is going to be the positives of Kareem Hunt while also the negatives of Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt is always going to be a viable option for you week in and week out, and I felt like today proved it, especially because if they do get in that game script where they're going to be trailing, he's going to see the ball in the receiving game, and that's just going to give him an increased floor. But then also, if he is going to get the opportunities here just on the ground, you should be able to start him every single week at your flex position if you have to. And the reason why that's bad is for Nick Chubb specifically. With Nick Chubb, you drafted him in that 2nd or 3rd round, hoping he was going to be not necessarily the guy, because we knew that Kareem Hunt was there, but that you didn't want Chubb's work to be minimized on a weekly basis, and that's looking like the trend. Now, granted, obviously, 1 game sample size, so we can see how this shakes out over the course of the season. But so far, this literally is going to be a 50-50 timeshare. And that's a bit concerning, especially for the future of Nick Chubb. Jarvis Landry, I really want to touch on him. I said this during my Baltimore preview, during my matchup preview, but then I also said, I think on my live stream earlier this morning, Jarvis Landry's going to give you a consistent floor every single week. Why are you not starting him? He's 5 receptions for 61 yards. Sure, that's not world-burning numbers, but if you really just need that safe option, that safe conservative option where you know the production that you're going to get, you need to start Jarvis Landry almost every single chance that you get because he's never going to hurt you. He's only just going to give you that consistent floor. Odell Beckham is one of the last players that I want to talk about here for the Browns. Odell, man. Oh, boy. 10 targets. He led the team in targets. So that's always a good thing. But the chemistry issues between him and Baker, they still aren't there. And then also just that the Baltimore defense was going to give Odell all of the attention. And they just made it really, really difficult for him this game. I mean, jeez. How are you Odell Beckham? And I think this is actually the conversation that we're going to actually start. We're going to have sooner rather than later if this trend keeps up again. Odell Beckham was being drafted in that 4th round territory this offseason, and I specifically was you need to take him there because he has the ceiling of being the top 10, top 5 wide receiver, but we just haven't seen it in quite a while actually, and I think myself included, we're going to have to start to get to the point where we need to remove that and literally burn that from our memory because what it's doing is it's skewing our perception of Odell Beckham. Over the course of the past year and now 1 week, Odell has not been good for you. The only game that comes to mind off the top of my head was the Monday night game versus the Jets last year, and that was it. And granted he had, 40 points that game, I think. But outside of that, it's been rough sledding for Beckham. I also want to just point out here, Austin Hooper only had 2 targets, 15 receiving yards on those 2 targets. So not great, not a good outlook for Hooper, and especially in a game where the Browns did get just got absolutely mashed. You were really looking to see someone really break out here and have a productive game, and no one really did. So that is a bit disappointing. But then let's just talk about the Ravens real quick, and then we'll get up out of here. with the Ravens, like, finally. I don't even want to say finally, but I saw some tweets earlier today where they literally said we need to stop labeling Lamar Jackson just as a rushing quarterback. And that made me so happy, because if you've been on this channel since the start of it, now granted that's only been like 3 months, you know my love for Lamar Jackson. You know he was my guy back in 2016, and I'm so thrilled to see his success continue in the NFL, especially because he is on my dynasty team, so I get to root for him every single year. So, like, Lamar Jackson is literally just going to light the league on fire for the next 10 years, and I'm so excited about that. I don't need to talk much about him. The big story here, because everybody else did what I expected them to do. Mark Andrews had 6 targets, 5 catches. Hollywood, 6 targets, 5 catches. They both put up great numbers for you this week. But again, the big story here really is Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, and just the work and just the timeshare. So I want to just go through the carry numbers real quick. Lamar Jackson had 7 rushing attempts. Mark Ingram had 10. J.K. Dobbins had 7. Gus Edwards had 4. Robert Griffin had 1. And Patrick Ricard also had 1. But we knew that this was going to be a somewhat of a 3-headed machine between Lamar, Ingram, and Dobbins, with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill being thrown in there a little bit as well. But what the breakdown really was, it showed today Mark Ingram really needed like those extra 7 touches, because the ones that he lost were so valuable to J.K. Dobbins, right? When you have your rookie in goal line situations and you give him the ball twice after listing him as 4th on the depth chart, which we knew was a smokescreen to begin with, because there was no way in hell that J.K. Dobbins is the 4th best running back on this team. It's a bit concerning just for the value of Ingram. Like, the player, like my opponent who has Mark Ingram, he just traded for him, and he traded away Jarvis Landry and a 4th round pick, I think it was. It was Jarvis Landry and a 4th round pick for Jimmy G and Mark Ingram, which isn't a bad deal, but with Mark Ingram, you were trading for him because of the upside of this offense, and you knew he was going to get the work. And while he did lead the team in carries, it wasn't enough. Like, they weren't good. He averaged 2.9 yards per attempt. His longest run this game was 8. He didn't get the goal line work, and that is just a tough pill to swallow, especially with this Browns defense, which was they were fine. I mean, they got shredded because their secondary is extremely injured right now, but their front line's pretty good, and so that was just really disappointing to see Ingram lose the valuable touches. Are there any other notes here? Willie Snead, just an interesting note, because Willie Snead is always a name that just happens to have good games, but you never know when they're going to come from, so that makes him such an inconsistent fantasy option. Willie Snead had 4 targets, caught all 4, and he had 64 yards and the score. Just a really, really good game from him. I don't think that there's a chance that this is a consistent thing, just because we don't know if the passing volume on this team is going to continue to increase or not. But that is just one name to keep an eye on moving forward. I wouldn't probably spend any waiver fab on him this week, but if he does it again next week, then pretty likely he'll be a waiver pickup. Devin Duvernay, the rookie, only had 1 target. He caught it for 12 yards. But other than that, like, the big story here really was just first off, the big story here really just entirely here was J.K. Dobbins, and just the work that he was the work that he got compared to the work that we all perceived him to get. So shout out to you, J.K. Dobbins, but one of my favorite rookie running backs in this class. But I think that's going to do it, actually, for this Baltimore Ravens versus Cleveland Browns game preview. The Ravens, once again, just in an absolute blowout, beat the Browns 38-6. If you enjoyed this recap, be sure to hit that like button down below. Maybe even share it with a friend, not even someone in your league, because I understand you want this content for you. So share it with somebody outside of your league that also plays fantasy football. Hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss a video from me. And of course, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. And I will see you in the next video. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever. Later.